In today's video, you are going to learn how to create this smooth loading transition for your website without writing a single line of code. We're going to be using Framer for that, and it's going to be pretty straightforward, so you don't need to learn any complex things in order to do this. Just follow along with this tutorial and you're going to have this super smooth loading transition on your website. My name is Nandi, this is Framer University, and let's get started. So as you can see, here we are on the demo website. So this is what we are going to create. As you can see, when I reload the website, we see this loading transition, which is pretty cool. And by the way, I just want to show you the inspiration. So here is the website. This is where I literally got inspired. So yeah, it's a pretty cool little simple loading transition. So yeah, let's jump into Framer and start creating this little thing. So the first thing that we do is we basically create a frame. We usually create frames, so that's not really a big thing. We always start with a frame. So yeah, here's the frame. We're gonna cut it with Command and X, and then I'm pasting it within this desktop breakpoint. It's really important that it's really important that this frame needs to be on the breakpoint level. So as you can see here, we have the desktop breakpoint, and I'm not nesting it further down. For example, I'm not pasting it within the main, but I'm pasting it within desktop breakpoint. By the way, a quick note here is that I'm going to link down this starter file in the description, so you're going to be able to just remix this file and follow along with this tutorial by creating the transition on this exact file that I have right now, because I have just a basic setup here with a hero and a section so that we have some content on the website. But yes, so here we have this frame that we pasted in on the breakpoint level, and now all we have to do with this is to rename, let's add a name, maybe loading comp or something like this, not leading but loading comp, and then we can set the position to fixed. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin it to the top left and to the right as well. So now as you can see, it is sticking to the right, to the left, and to the top of the viewport. If I preview this website, you can see that as I resize the viewport, it is always sticking to the sides, but I also want it to cover the full viewport height. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this frame and I will give it 100 VH for the height. So as you can see now, it will always take up the full viewport. So it's very cool. Now all we have to do is to create a component out of this. So I'm gonna hit Option Command and K on my keyboard, and I can just hit enter to create the component, but you can also just right click on the frame and hit create component here. And now we have this component here on the component canvas, and we can add different variants to this to create different states for our loading animation. So the first state will be called start. So I'm going to rename this to start. This is the primary variant, and I'm going to actually remove the fill color from this because we're going to have additional frames within this frame, and we are going to have the background color on those frames. So I'm going to hit F on my keyboard, create another frame, and this will also be positioned like this. So as you can see, all these pins are activated and they are set to 0. So this frame will always stick to the sides of this frame. Okay, so this frame will be renamed to BG because this will be the background color, and I will pick this dark color for the background. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lock this frame by right clicking here and just finding lock, because I don't want to be accidentally clicking into this frame. So now I can create another frame here. This will be called content, because we will place all the content within this frame here. So content, and then I'm gonna again do the same thing because I'm setting all these pins to 0, so it is filling up the available space. Then I'm gonna remove this fill color so it is fully transparent. And then if we take a look at this animation, you can see that we have these texts as they are coming in, and these are actually individual frames. So I'm going to just quickly show you. So I'm clicking T on my keyboard and writing something on the canvas. Maybe let's use the same word. So R will be the first word. I'm going to use Satoshi font, and then the weight will be bold. The size will be 21 pixels, and then I'm going to also change the color to white so we can see that, but something is not cool because the color is not changing. So let's just select the text, and now all the changes will be visible. So again, set it to Satoshi, and yeah, that's gonna be our font. Maybe we can also decrease the letter spacing a bit. So this looks pretty cool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wrap this in a frame. So I'm gonna just hit Option, Command and Enter on my keyboard. As you can see, now it is wrapped in a frame. It's called columns, but I'm gonna rename it to block. So this will be the first block. And as you can see, if I, for example, set this text from relative to absolute positioning, what I can do is I can just move it around freely. And if I go to the block frame, I can actually set its overflow to hidden. So the overflowing parts will be hidden. And if I set it hidden, as you can see, it is now hidden. So if I now place this text right here, then I can nicely animate it in like this, and then animate it out like this. So this is what we're gonna do. But first, let's just place it to the middle of this frame. And I'm gonna do a little trick here, because as you can see, if I, for example, change the text here, so something, then as you can see, the block is not changing. So the block frame is not adapting to the changes, because of course this is absolutely positioned. So it is kind of like out of the flow of this stack. So the little trick that I usually do is I duplicate the text and I call this helper. And this helper will basically have the same content as the regular text here, but the helper will be actually positioned relatively. They are now actually on top of each other. And if I change the position of the absolutely positioned text, you can see that the relatively positioned text is still there. And if I select both of these, I can just easily change their content here. And as you can see, now the block frame is also changing because its width and height is set to fixed. So it is adapting to the relatively positioned helper text. But of course, it's not really good that we are also seeing the helper text. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna simply turn down the opacity to 0. So it's still there, technically it's there, but the opacity is 0. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select the absolutely positioned text and center it by hitting Option H and Option V on my keyboard. And I will just try to use some different letters to see if the frame is big enough, because as you can see, this is being a little bit cut off. So what we can do here is we can select the block and just increase the top and bottom padding just a little bit. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna position it again to the middle. So now as you can see, it has enough space on the top and on the bottom, and it is not being cut off. So now I'm going to select both of the texts, because you already know that we have to change both text content. So we're going to write R here, and then I'm going to just position this absolute position text here to the bottom. So as you can see, this bottom pin will be activated and it will be -100, for example. And then I can just duplicate this block a couple of times. So we'll have 3 words. But as you can see, they are now positioned on top of each other, which is not really cool. It is because they are absolutely positioned, and it's because the content frame is not a stack. So I will just select the content frame and I will add a layout to it. So this way it is turned into a stack. So all content within this stack will be now positioned relatively. So as you can see, these blocks are right below each other, but I want them to be positioned right next to each other. So I will just change the stack direction to horizontal. So now as you can see, these stacks are right next to each other, and I will just change the content on the second one. It will be U, and then on the last one, it will be ready. Now I will actually grab all these blocks and select all of them, and then hit Option Command and Enter on my keyboard to wrap them in a stack. And then this stack will be set to fit content width and fit content height, and it will be called texts. And the gap between these items will be 16 pixels. Okay, so now we have these texts here. All we need to add is the little loading line that you can see on the website. So if I reload this, you see that we have a little loading line here. So I'm gonna just add that as well. I know it might be a bit confusing that we don't see these blocks here or the text within these blocks, but it's because these texts are now being cut off. But on the next variant, which will be the arrive variant, we will see the text, so don't worry. And by the way, just one more thing, if these relatively positioning things, like absolute positioning things and these things, you might find them a bit interesting or hard to understand. That's why I'm going to say that I have a free course that is coming out really soon. It's fully free and it has like a full learning platform for it. It's coming out really soon. It might be already released by the time you watch this video, so go to Framer.University and check it out. But yeah, let's get back to the video. Okay, so now I'm going to create a line here, which will be a frame, of course. I'm going to call this line. The height will be 4 pixels. And then I'm going to change the color to white and 50%. Then I'm going to create another line within this little frame. So I have to zoom in a bit. And this will be absolutely positioned, and the left pin will be 0. And the top and the bottom pin will be also 0. And the width will be relative 10%. And this will have a fully white color. So we will just move this line by adjusting the width here, and this will be the loading animation, but for now it's just 10%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the line and the text, and I will wrap them in a stack by hitting Option Command and Enter. Then I'm going to hit Shift and A on my keyboard to set it to width fit and height fit, and then I'm going to set the direction to vertical, and I will make sure that the line is below the text. So now as you can see, the text is right here and then the line is below them. Okay, so now this row will be text plus line and the gap will be 20 pixels. So the gap between these will be 20 pixels here. Okay, so let's set up the remaining states as well. So I'm gonna just add another variant here, which we will call arrive. This will basically the state where we arrive, and then the leave state when we will leave. So the arrive state where we have these little blocks here, and these blocks have these absolutely positioned texts, and they need to be in the middle of the frame. So I will just hit Option H and V on my keyboard, but as you can see, it doesn't really work if all of these are selected at the same time. So I will just undo this and just do it one by one. So this, the first one, the second one, and the third one as well. And they are now positioned to the middle, but I will make sure that the bottom pin is deactivated. So now everything looks great. The next thing I will do here is I will select this frame here and set the width to 100%. So as you can see, it will be fully loaded. So this is the arrive variant, and then the last variant will be the leave. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to move these out of the frame. So I'm selecting these absolutely positioned text layers, activating the top pin and setting it to -100. So now as you can see, they are up here and they are not visible. But what you can also notice here is when we go to the leave state, not only the text moves up, but also the background color. So we will do that as well. So let's go back here and we can just select this little background here, and we will be able to just, you know, resize it like this. But I just realized that this is not the right solution, because like this, we cannot make it really responsive and adaptive to the viewport. So what we need to do is we need to go back to the primary breakpoint, to the start variant. Sorry, not the breakpoint, but the variant. So the start variant here, this is the first one. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just tweak the positioning of this element a bit. So I'm going to deactivate the bottom pin. So now as you can see, it just has a fixed height, and I can just, you know, control it from here. But I can also set 100 VH here. So as you can see, it takes up the 100% of the given viewport now. I will just adjust this viewport here so the preview also looks great. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to the leave. And from here, what we can do is we can select the BG again. And I will right click the BG and reset overrides, because we have changed it in the past and it did not update based on the primary variant because of that. So we had to reset the overrides, but now as you can see, it has height 100 VH and the bottom pin is also deactivated. So what we can do here is we can set the height to 1 VH, so it will be really small, but as you can see, it's still in the viewport or in this frame. So I'm just gonna move this up by setting this top pin to -100. So as you can see, this will be the leave state, and I also have to make sure that the line is set to opacity 0, so it also basically disappears. One thing I also remembered here is we need to set all these text layers to user select none, because if we don't do this, the users will be able to select the text, which is, I don't know, I don't really like it when people can select the text on the website, or at least if it's something like this, like a loading animation. So we're gonna set the user select to none. Okay, so what you can notice here is that all necessary variants are set up on the component canvas here. So all we have to do right now is to add the interactions. So what we can do is we can go from the start to the arrive. And what I'm doing here is basically I'm hitting L on my keyboard and just connecting it to the arrive. And we can set it to happen on appear. So when the start variant of the component appears on the website, so basically when we load the website, it will automatically go to the arrive variant. But I actually don't want to trigger this interaction instantly, so I want to have a little bit of a delay. So I'll have 0.5 seconds delay here, and the transition will be also a bit different. So I can just select the primary variant here and click transition to adjust it. So it will be an ease transition, and I have these little numbers here, which I can just copy and then paste it in here. And so this will be the easing curve, and the time will be 1 second. So then from the arrive, we go to the leave variant, which will also happen on appear. So when this arrive appears, we go to leave, but we will wait 2 seconds before that. And then from the leave, we don't go back to arrive. So I'm just gonna remove this interaction from here. Okay, so now we can go back to the canvas and see what we have so far. So the first thing you notice is that the navbar here is above the loading component, which is not so great. So what we can do here is we can select the loading component and set its index to 10, so it is above everything. So now I will just preview this, and as you can see, it is pretty cool, but we need to make some changes. So for example, the texts are coming in after each other, so they don't come in at the same time, and then they don't leave at the same time. And also we have to delay the background color disappearance. So let's do these things. I go back to the component canvas, and what I can do here is I can add a transition property to the different layers that I want to delay a bit with the transition. So I want to delay the block here. So all these blocks, these texts here, I want to delay them. And I also want to delay the BG. So I'm adding the transition to them on the primary variant, and then I'm adjusting the properties of the transition on different variants. So I'm just going to go to styles and add the transition here. As you can see, it has the same transition, but I will actually change it to 0.8 seconds, so the time will be a bit slower. And then what I can do is I can go here to the arrive variant, and I can select these blocks here. So I'm going to select the first one, and I'm going to take a look at the transition. As you can see, it has 0.8 seconds time, and the delay is set to 0, so it's pretty cool. Then I'm going to go to the block. Here I'm going to set the delay to 0.1 seconds. And then here on the last text, I'm going to set it to 0.2 seconds. So let's see if now this delay works. As you can see, now these texts are delayed. So what I can do is to change the delay on the leave variant as well, because I want to, delay the slide out as well. So here I'm gonna select the last one first, and then this will be 0. The middle one will be 0.1, and then the first one will be 0.2 seconds delay. Now let's take a look at how this looks. As you can see, they come in and then they leave. So the last thing that we need to do is to delay the background. So I'm gonna go to the leave variant, and then I'm just gonna delay the BG frame right here. So I'm selecting the BG, going to the transition, and I'm gonna delay it by 0.3 seconds. So now we can take a look. And as you can see, it works pretty nicely. But I think there's one thing that we forgot, because as you can see, the loading transition has ended, but I cannot click anything on the website. Why is that? It's because we have to set these loading components pointer events to none, because of course we don't see anything after the loading animation ended, but this frame is still here. Its opacity is just changed, it's 0, but technically it's still here, and that's why we cannot click anything that is behind it. So what we can do is, again, as I said, select the loading component, go to the styles and apply pointer events and set it to none. So now as you can see, we can see that it's loading, and then when we are on the website, we can click all these buttons. So that's it for this tutorial. You can find a bunch of links in the description. I have a remix link for the completed effect. I have a complete resource on the Framer University website. I also have an optimized component for you that you can just adjust with the component properties, so it is pretty easy to use. And yeah, I hope you liked this video. As I said, I have a free course coming out, so go to Framer University and subscribe to the waitlist if you aren't on it already. And if the course is already out, then all I can say is that I really hope that you learned something from it. So yeah, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more, and I'm gonna see you in the next one.